Welcome back to English 4.0, the radio show. Let's go! Advanced. Hello and welcome to the program. Welcome to the advanced portion of class number 178. And I always say welcome to the program, or sometimes welcome back. We might be coming back if you're listening on the radio, or maybe it's just the start of a whole new thing here if you're listening online and you just listen to the advanced portion. Well, either way, welcome to class number 178, and as always, my name is Kyle, and we'll get started with a little review of yesterday's content. We were looking at questions yesterday using the question word who. Now, the interesting thing about this is we often have the case where who represents the subject in the answer. Subject questions, we call them. And when this is the case, when the word who represents a subject, of course, we don't need an auxiliary verb, which is an exception when it comes to questions. So, for example, who broke my watch? I don't say who did break. I say who broke it? Who broke my watch? Because who represents the subject, so there's no need for an auxiliary verb. But let's practice this with my favorite format for practicing questions, which is the little exercise I like to call mastering the interrogative. So here I will give you the answers, and I'd like you to ask me the question that I've already answered. Okay, so the first one, I met John in the office last week. Now the question here would be, who did you meet in the office last week? Who did you meet? I met John. Now here, I met John. So I'm not asking for the subject, right? So we have to use an auxiliary verb. Who did you meet? I met John. David asked for help with the installation. David, there's our subject. So who asked for help with the installation? Now, we see this subject question style, usually with who, but very often with what as well. We often see it with what, like what caused the fire? Okay? So we'll take a look at a few more examples. The two sisters were talking when the priest came in. Now the question, who was talking when the priest came in? Layla found the best solution. Who found the best solution? They wanted to speak to Fitz. Who did they want to speak to? I thought about my mother when I saw the movie. Who did you think about when you saw the movie? I was talking to Natasha when my phone rang. The question, who were you talking to when your phone rang? Ring, rang, rung. Remember, ring, rang, rung. My brother fixed the copier. The question, who fixed the copier? Stephen is going to repair it. Who is going to repair it? All right. Very good. Let's move on now and take a look at a little practice with the third conditional. So remember the structure here. If, had, would have. If, subject, had, participle, would have, participle. I didn't ask her because I knew she would say no. So if you form a logical conclusion here, you'd say, you would have asked her if you hadn't known she would say no. I didn't pay the bill because I didn't have my wallet. If you had had your wallet, you would have paid the bill. I worked late because I had a report to finish. If you hadn't had a report to finish, you wouldn't have worked late. She called the repairman because the washer was broken. If the washer hadn't been broken, she wouldn't have called the repairman. Good. I ordered fish because they were out of steak. I ordered fish because they were out of steak. So they didn't have any steak left, so I ordered fish. If they hadn't been out of steak, I wouldn't have ordered fish. I drove alone because no one wanted to go with me. If someone had wanted to go with me, I wouldn't have driven alone. Remember, drive, drove, driven. She asked for help because she didn't know how to do it herself. If she had known how to do it herself, she wouldn't have asked for help. All right. Very good. So there we go with yesterday's material. Let's move on now and take a look at our expression of the day. Expression of the day. All right. Just wetting my whistle there. Taking a drink, taking a sip of water as we hear that jingle. Expression of the day. That's right. Our expression of the day today is sharp as a tack. Sharp. Sharp. So afilado. Sharp as a tack. Now the tack, the little thumb tack, I think you say chincheta for a tack. So a tack, it has to be sharp to work. Afilado, sharp. So now, if someone is sharp, it means they're intelligent. It means we often say quick as well. Intelligent, they're smart. Listo, they're smart, they're quick, they're sharp. Sharp as a tack, very sharp. Oh, he's sharp as a tack. He doesn't miss, we often say he doesn't miss a trick, or he doesn't miss a thing. He's sharp as a tack. Yeah, he knows what's going on. He's very sharp. He's intelligent. But really, being sharp, it's not like book smarts, we say, intelligence that comes from reading and learning, but rather your attention to detail. If you're sharp as a tack, we're usually referring to your attention to detail. You notice things, and you're aware of things that are happening, and you make clever observations if you're sharp as a tack. And that's our expression of the day. Let's move on now and take a look at something that everyone loves, right? Phrasal verbs. Everyone loves a good phrasal verb. I've noticed that. And our phrasal verb that we're going to look at is to come up with, which means sugerir, proponer, or also idear, un plan, plantear. So it can mean many different things. So to come up with, John came up with a great proposal. He came up with a good idea. He came up with a solution. So we're sitting in the meeting and John says, I've got it. I know I have a perfect solution here. I've just come up with a perfect solution. So to come up, if you come up with something, the idea comes to your brain, typically an innovative idea. People that are sharp as a tack are probably good at coming up with clever ideas and interesting solutions. Who came up with the idea of the telephone? Well, maybe not the idea, but the invention was Alexander Graham Bell. Yeah, he came up with the phone. Now, do you often come up with excuses when you don't want to do something? So here it's not necessarily a clever idea, but an excuse. Like my students, when they don't do their homework. My dog ate it. I say, oh, okay. Is that the best idea you can come up with? Is that the best excuse? We can say to come up with an excuse. Are you good at coming up with answers? When people need answers, are you good at coming up with them? All right, let's take a look now at a few interesting inventions. See if you know who came up with, for example, the thermometer. The thermometer. Now, a fellow named Thomas Albert came up with the thermometer in 1867. Now, this is the medical thermometer in 1867, which is the same year as the Canadian Confederation, for those of you who are keeping track at home of facts related to Canada. Probably nobody, but And 100 years later, in 1967, a fellow named Ralph Baer invented the video game. He came up with the video game. Now, do you know who came up with the idea of the banknote? Bills, right? Money. In North American English, we say bills, like we'll say a $5 bill. And in Britain, they will say a £5 note. So banknotes or bills. Now, the banknote, it was in fact the Bank of Stockholm, Sweden, that came up with the banknote in 1661. Right. Now, another fact here about Canada, insulin, invented by Canadians. Frederick Banting and Charles Best came up with the idea for insulin. Well, they came up with insulin, I should say, in a laboratory in 1921. Good one. Well done. They came up with it. Let's see here. Other ones. Yes, the gas-powered engine. Carl Benz came up with the first, let's say, automobile, the internal combustion engine, gasoline-powered engine, in 1885. Now, most believe that Henry Ford was credited with the invention of the car, but at least the gasoline engine, the internal combustion engine, Carl Benz, I would assume, of Mercedes-Benz, not Benz, but Benz, came up with that in 1885. Let's see here. What else do we have? A lawnmower. A lawnmower, corta césped. Edwin Beard Budding came up with the invention of the lawnmower in 1830. It's interesting. One of my students in the Vaughan materials, there's a picture of a guy mowing a lawn. There are pages in the Vaughan picture book that was used when we teach classes. There are pages of what we call verb vocabulary. And there are pictures of people doing different actions. And one of them is a guy mowing the lawn. Está cortando el césped. He has the máquina corta césped, the lawn mower. So he is mowing to mow, M-O-W, to mow the lawn. Now, lawn is césped. Grass is more like hierba. But let's say lawn is césped because a lawn is essentially maintained grass. A lawn is grass, of course, it's grass. But not all grass is a lawn, because a lawn has to be maintained, intentionally kept nice and beautiful, whereas grass can be growing in the forest between two trees that nobody will ever see, but it's still grass. But there's a picture there of a guy mowing a lawn, and one of my students who has had classes with many different Vaughan teachers says, my teachers always teach me this, lawn mower. And it was my first job when I was young. When I was about 14 years old, I started mowing lawns for $10 a lawn. Yeah. I started working very young, at about 14 years old, mowing lawns. So it was all made possible by Edwin Beard Budding, who came up with, the phrasal verb we're practicing today, who came up with the lawnmower back in 1830. Let's move on now and take a look at our vocabulary of the day. Vocabulary of the day. Oh, yes, it is time for the vocabulary of the day. The first word, maleducado. Don't be so maleducado, rude, 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 but R-U-D-E, rude. Dependiente de tienda. This is a sales clerk. Sales clerk. I've never worked as a sales clerk. Sarcasmo. Very similar. English is easy. Sarcasm. Sarcasm. Plan. Scheme. Scheme. Yeah. Scheme. Like, for example, Bernie Madoff, who was put in jail, I guess last year for organizing this famous Ponzi scheme where he had people investing money and he guaranteed a very high rate of return, and it was a scheme, but it was very unlawful, and he ended up losing a lot of people's money with that scheme. Dominio de sí mismo. This is self-restraint. Self-restraint. Yes. All right. Very good. Now, as we move on into the last point, we have the word actually. Actually. Now, we have that nice TU sound. Chu, chu. Actually. Actually. And it says, ¿Eres francés? No. En realidad, soy inglés. You're French, aren't you? No. I'm actually English. I may seem English, but I'm actually Canadian. I may look Spanish, but actually, en realidad, actually. It has nothing to do with time. It has to do with an assessment of reality. It's not the same as actualmente. This is the problem. People say actualmente, but no. Para decir actualmente, in the sense of hoy en día, o en nuestros días, decimos nowadays, or these days. Okay? Actualmente las mujeres pueden votar. Nowadays, women can vote. Okay? And then, for ahora mismo, decimos, en este momento, ahora mismo, decimos presently, or at present, or currently, or at the moment. At the moment, I'm sitting in a chair. Currently, I'm sitting in a chair. I'm recording the radio show. At the moment. Currently. I may look Spanish, but actually, I'm Canadian. In reality, actually, I'm Canadian. It may sound difficult, but actually, it's not that hard. In reality, actually. But here we have an example of a typical sound that Spaniards often have a bit of trouble with. The TU, chew, chew. Pronunciation. What? Yes, I want to think about pronunciation for just a moment. The TU sound, chew. Repeat after me. Portugal. So it's not Portugal. No. Portugal. Mixture. Expenditure. Statue. Statue. Very good. Furniture. And here, the word that we're looking at now, actually. It may seem difficult. It may seem hard to pronounce, but actually, it's not that bad. In reality, actually, it's not that bad. Well, friends, we're out of time. I want to finish there. We'll come back to this tomorrow. We will review today's content and move on to look at so much more tomorrow at the same time. I do hope you'll join me. We'll see you then. Bye-bye.